Hello, my name is Suzanne and I garden and grow cut flowers in Devon in the UK, and that time of year is upon us where we start to feel a little bit festive. So I am going to be making a wreath today, and I'm going to be doing something not quite so traditional today, although we do feature ivy, which is obviously very traditional, and some lovely conifer here. But actually I'm going to be and less of the reds and golds. I'm going to be going more for the silvers and whites. So I'm going to be using a homemade wreath base, which I made using willow and some moss, which I gathered in my paddock. You don't have to use these things. You can use a preformed wreath base, one made from metal. You may buy one made from grapevine, or you may even buy one made from willow yourself, or you may have willow growing at home where you can make one. And I will try and pop in a little bit of footage of me making a wreath base here, and then also how I attach the moss. The footage may be me attaching hay, but to be honest, the attachment method, whether it be moss, hay or straw, is all exactly the same. I use a ball of twine, and that's because I like my wreath to be 100% biodegradable, but you can of course use a reel of spool wire if you prefer. So anyway, I've gone ahead and got my wreath base ready. Now, if I were going to be placing my wreath in the house, I probably would go ahead and soak this moss, because it would just keep the foliage moist and allow it to last for longer. However, if you're putting a wreath outside, honestly, it really doesn't need the addition of the extra moisture, and you can in fact make the wreath without adding the moss or hay. You can just use the willow structure underneath. I just find this just makes a bit of a fuller wreath when you finish the final product. Now I've gone ahead and attached somewhere to hang my wreath up, because it's much easier to do that now than when you've actually completed the wreath in the end. So I've just got, you can see, a little loop there where I can hang my wreath to a nail. You could of course hang the whole wreath onto something if you have it available to you. So because I have got the moss, I'm actually not going to add my dried flower ingredients right until the end, and I'm just going to be sticking them into the moss. So I'm just going to begin by putting the greenery onto the wreath base, and to do that I need to find the end of this is a brand new reel of twine, and I'm just going to tie my twine onto my base. It doesn't matter how you do it. Some twines are stronger than others, and I have had some hit and miss with twines that I have purchased. I find they're more prone to breakages when you have soaked your moss or your hay. Okay, so now I'm just going to just snip that wayward piece off. So I'm just going to take some little bunches of my foliages, which, as I say, I'm keeping it quite simple. I often, when I'm making wreaths, put lots and lots of different foliages on, but I'm actually finding this year I'm favouring something a bit more simplistic. And then you want to go ahead and place that onto your wreath. Let me just move this over to this side. And you want to sort of face it outwards. You don't want to go straight along with the wreath. I mean, you can do that, but I think you get a nicer shape if you have it angled ever so slightly out. Then you just want to go ahead and use your ball of twine to bind that to your wreath form, about 3 turns, and then just leave that on the side there while you get another bunch. You can, if you prefer, make little bunches in the beginning sort of bunch them all up and then tie those on. I prefer this method because I find I get much tighter binding. Okay, so then we're going to lay our next bunch on top of the stems here from the last one and at a similar angle to what we've just done. And then I'm just going to, again, about 3 times should be sufficient. And then I'll leave that on the side there and we'll go again. I think I'm going to miss the ivy off on this one. And again, slightly out to an angle and then bind about 3 times. So other ingredients that are obviously popular are types of spruce and pine, of course holly. One of my favourites is pine. They are great. The only thing I would say is if you're using a lot of pine, you will find the sap will eventually, I mean, when I'm making lots of orders that have pine in, it will be all over your hands. You'll have very sticky hands. And not only that, some of the hollies and the spruces and the firs can be a bit prickly, so you may need to wear gloves. You can see I've opted for the kind to my hand ingredients today. And you can see I'm quite generous with my bunches. You'll make a wreath much quicker if you're generous. Yeah, the fewer pieces you use, the longer it will take to cover the base. If you're going to be foraging for things for making your wreath, it is really important to make sure you have permission of the landowner. So this lovely conifer is from a friend of mine, so thank you, Marion, for that. But when I'm actually selling Christmas wreaths, it's actually quite difficult to find landowners, enough landowners to get enough of what you need. So I tend to find for the wreaths I sell on my website, I tend to buy British wholesale foliage, which if you're someone who your time is valuable and you don't want to be out clambering around in hedges or, you know, knocking on doors to ask for permission, then actually the wholesale foliage you can get is very high quality and a lot of the work is done for you. Oh. So you can see we're getting there now. And as I say, this is just the basic shape, and then we're going to add our sparkly bits in to give it that unique appearance. Of course, you can tailor your wreath, you know, however you like. You know, if you particularly like gold and you want to add bracken, or maybe you've been drying flowers over the summer and you've got some lovely helichrysum, you know, you want to do sort of reds and golds. Or maybe you have got some eucalyptus. Eucalyptus is so popular. I quite like, as an alternative to pine cones, I quite like teasel. Okay, so what you want to do when you get nearer the end, I'm not sure if this is going to be my last one or not, but you still just need to lift your first one to tuck it in. I think I might get one more in just a minute. Yeah, definitely get another one in. And quite a big one, I think. So again, tucking it underneath. I think I'm going to need slightly shorter stems on this one. Okay, so one final bunch. Again, we need to try and lift our original and first bunch to put our last one in, and then binding nice and tightly, and then turn your wreath over. Give yourself enough length to tie this off. This bit must have just been on the table and got wound in. Okay, and then I'm just going to find a piece of twine I can get to. So here's a piece to tie off to. Bearing in mind the string, you want to pull it firmly, but not so firmly that we're going to break it. That's why I wouldn't be tempted to hang your wreath from this piece here, because of course if it snapped under the weight of the wreath, then the whole wreath would unravel. Okay, there we are. And then you just want to work your twine in under some of your foliages so that you want the ribbon on top but the twine hidden underneath. Like that. And then we'll just tie our ribbon on. Now I'm going to add my honesty in first. And because we laid our foliage all in one direction, you want to continue with that theme when you are adding in your dried elements. And I'm just going to snip out, there's an honesty seed pod there that's a bit torn, so we'll just snip that one out. And this time I am going to be using the moss, so we want a nice sharp point, and we're just going to get purchase on the moss. And you'll feel when it goes in, see there, it won't always go in first time, so you do need to have a bit of patience. And we're just going to go ahead and add the honesty into the wreath first. You can buy honesty online if you don't grow any in your garden, but equally it may be something you may be able to forage from somebody else's land or garden if you have permission. There's a hedge on the way to work for me where I often, well, not often, but I always see the honesty in the very early spring. But of course I've grown this, so I've got a plentiful supply. Okay, there we are. So that's the honesty. And then we've got some of this beautiful ammy. And you'll notice I'm only using a few pieces of each thing, but because white on green it really shows up. You really don't need a huge amount of it. Now, I always say work in uneven, odd numbers, 3s, 5s, 7s. And here I am about to put 4 pieces of ami in. And you want to be going the same way as you put all of your foliage in the beginning. And I just want a few small pieces. Nothing to overpower, particularly because of that yellow colour. Which also, because the ivy hasn't quite gone to seed yet, so it's not quite got that black colour, there's sort of quite a limey, yellowy colour in the ivy as well. Thank you for joining me to make my Christmas wreath today. If you did like the video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to follow my gardening and cut flower journey, you can subscribe to my channel. And if you'd like to contribute towards the making of these videos, then you can, of course, buy me a coffee. And the link for coffee buying is in the description to the video. Please do let me know in the comments what sort of ingredients you're going to be adding to your Christmas wreaths this year. Honesty is a new one for me because it's the first year I've grown it. And as beautiful as it is, I must admit that peeling the seed cases is a bit more time consuming than I had have imagined it would be. Best of luck with your Christmas wreaths, and I'll see you in the next video. on YouTube. One of them was actually, I think, the first or second video I ever made. So that's quite a fun one to watch. And then the other one was one that I made last year. Thank you for joining me to make my Christmas wreath today. If you did like the video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to follow my gardening and cut flower journey, you can subscribe to my channel. And if you'd like to contribute towards the making of these videos, then you can, of course, buy me a coffee. And the link for coffee buying is in the description to the video. Please do let me know in the comments what sort of ingredients you're going to be adding to your Christmas wreaths this year. Honesty is a new one for me because it's the first year I've grown it. And as beautiful as it is, I must admit that peeling the seed cases is a bit more time consuming than I had have imagined it would be. Best of luck with your Christmas wreaths, and I'll see you in the next video.